Many of us are curious about a spiritual life. Some people are drawn to seek out a relationship with God or explore some other way of connecting with the more than human world. It feels special, and for many people, moments of spiritual enlightenment or insight feel like a taste of something that's long been missing from our lives. Something essential, profound, inspiring, and nourishing to the soul. But how do modern, cynical, busy people, with our rational understanding of the world, our modern values, and our information-saturated lives, discover an authentic spiritual experience? How do we do this for ourselves? And how do we share it with one another? For well over 1,000 years, churches like this one in Sussex and the tens of thousands like it across the country formed the heart of communities, and what happened inside them formed the heart of our spiritual lives. But over time, the popularity of going to church on a Sunday or attending any services in a building like this has fallen away. Most people you will find in a congregation in the UK now have entered the UK and brought their faith with them. For a whole host of reasons, the popularity of traditional religions has just fallen away. My name is Alexander, and I've spent my life absolutely fascinated by spiritual faith. I used to get in trouble at school because I would be constantly pestering the Christians about what they did, how it felt and why they did it. I grew up in an entirely secular home. I went on to study philosophy and theology at university, and again I was surrounded by priests and ministers and people of profound faith as we wrestled with these eternal and interesting questions. I went on to study the mythology and a whole bunch of indigenous spiritualities from around the world. I have studied all the Abrahamic faiths and things like Sufism, which grew out of them. I've engaged with more modern spiritualities, the so-called New Age religions, and I've trained with shamans, and I've just been fascinated my entire life about this feeling, this deeper essence, this idea, this resonant concept of spiritual faith. It's always seemed to me that those people who have it and express it throughout their lives and let it inform every moment of their lives, and it informs their choices and the things that they do for a living and the ways that they treat other people, those people seem to have something that I lacked, and I wanted to know what it was. When I spend time with those people, I can kind of feel what they're experiencing, but I've always struggled to find that for myself. I always feel like an outsider. I feel embarrassed or clunky. I feel like I don't know what to do. I feel like I'm trespassing on someone else's territory. Or when I encounter some of the beliefs of the more traditional religions, they just feel wrong to me. They feel alien, they feel antiquated, they feel from a different world, and they sometimes just feel plain wrong. So in this series, I'll be exploring what does spirituality look like for people who feel like me. We want something that will resonate, that will feel authentic and genuine, feel something that we can claim is actually ours, something that improves our lives, gives it more meaning and depth and purpose, and yet a whole bunch of the traditional answers don't work for us. There are things about traditional religions that feel clunky, uncomfortable, wrong, and we reject those things. There are things about more modern religions and spiritualities that have interest for us, and we can certainly take interesting things from them, and yet they don't seem to have all the answers we're looking for. I'll be exploring all sorts of different faiths and practices and religions and spiritualities, and speaking to some experts and some practitioners to find out what we can learn from them and what keeps cynical modern people like us away from an authentic spiritual life. I'll really be exploring two questions through this series. The first question is the individual experience. So how do I finally stop feeling like an outsider? How can we become people of faith, people who do feel like we have an authentic spiritual experience, an authentic spiritual life, a way of expressing ourselves spiritually? How can we do that? How can we reclaim that? How can we find something that actually feels like ours? And how can we then integrate that into our lives and let our whole lives be informed by our faith? But the second question is perhaps more interesting. How do we do spirituality together? How can we find things to do, places to go, things to say, things to believe, things to feel, that we can share with one another and together rebuild community and find resilience and succour together. My belief is that we're about to enter a very dark chapter in human history as climate change begins to scale up and as all of the knock-on effects that it will have on supply chains and politics and socio-economic conditions throughout the world begin to be felt here in wealthy countries. We're going to need something to get us through. Something that bonds us together, something that feels genuine and authentic that we can share, something that feels real, something that gives our lives more purpose and meaning. How do we do this together? That's the second question that I'll be exploring. If you think this journey might be important for you too, and if you want to share in this journey, then please follow along, subscribe to my channel, and watch the episodes as I explore all these different ways that humans have found to express their spiritual expression, and we try and tease out how we are going to find this feeling inside ourselves. I'll be responding to your feedback, so please do leave comments as I release more episodes in this series. What are your big questions about spirituality? Where have you found meaning? What turns you off about religions, either old or new? What do you think I should be talking about and exploring? So that's the idea behind this series. In my next video, I'll begin this exploration by looking at the roots of spirituality that exist in the UK and in Western culture. I think we need to know where we're coming from before we can choose where we're going. If you agree, then join me for the next episode.